mulengerera wala nno. We want a speaker who will lead with purpose. We don't want a speaker who is a project. That is why we must insist that power must be our servant and not our master. I'm saying Goliath. Goliath was already dead in the spirit. Even the former speaker was already defeated in the spirit by the time I announced. The spirit had already fallen. What we saw falling the other day by way of the letter of withdrawal was merely the body following the spirit. The spirit was long dead. Because we believe in prayer. And I have said God still has something to say about this. And you people are going to be shocked. I'm going to come back here next week because the election is on Monday. On Tuesday, I'm going to come here. Unfortunately, I won't be wearing that horse hair. Those are going to be among the first changes of decolonization. It's a very hot country. We're in the tropics. Even in Britain, they no longer wear it. Yes. I think the last person, it was this lady, Boothroyd, who abandoned it. They don't wear it now. So, put in your calendar, Mao press conference on Tuesday as Speaker of Parliament. This has to happen so that you people can know that this is about you. So I came this morning to reiterate my resolve to continue my efforts to persuade the country and the members of the 12th Parliament that of all those that have expressed their interest and those being interested in the position of Speaker, I am the one most suitable for such a time as this. I'm not in the business of a two-term Speaker. For me, I'm for this time, for such a time as this. So we are simply saying, this time, Mao. Yes. This time, Mao. Secondly, this press conference is also intended to declare that I intend to continue engaging the NRM in order that my candidature is considered alongside any other candidatures of those MPs who are members of NRM. On the basis of the cooperation we have. Remember, in the first 5 minutes of the President's inaugural address at Kololo Ceremonial Grounds, he praised the Democratic Party alongside the Uganda People's Congress for being a positive force in uniting our country. Yeah. What President Museveni and I are doing, others want to scatter. Tuzimba bazimbulula. Fe tukunganya, bo basasanya. I know the role of the Speaker. I don't have to repeat that. I know what it is like to moderate debate. I've been an advocate since 1994. Now 32 years on the role of advocates. So, what is the thinking behind my insistence that the NRM has a lot to gain by rallying behind me? because I understand the challenges. I don't know how many of you have read President Museveni's book, What is Africa's Problem? Today I ask, what is Uganda's problem? Okay, we can say corruption, poverty, and so on.
Poor leadership.
The candidate being interested in the position of Speaker and I are answers to different questions. We used to have a priest in Makerere who told us of the time he went to America and he found people wearing t-shirts on which the following words were written: Jesus is the answer. Then he asked, what is the question? So, if you say Mao is the answer to the crisis in Parliament, what is the question? Remember, I'm currently the chairman of IPOD, which I believe in. IPOD is the body which brings together members of all the parties to carry out dialogue on how to solve the problems of Uganda. Later I will explain in very serious terms the thinking. I have been insulted more than anyone else for preaching unity across parties. Every day I've been insulted for serving as a minister. Now those who have been insulting me are lobbying to be ministers. Even members of DP, the DP members who held the press conference and even broke my portrait in Parliament, they are the ones who accompanied Honorable Nsibambi to State House. When the time for photos came, they ran away. Why do you do something you don't believe in? What is the difference between me, who goes openly, and you, who is in hiding? In fact, you are more of a thug. When I announced that I was going to be Speaker, even members of my own party descended on me. They prophesied. And now the prophecy is in the dustbin. So, let me explain why I believe that the NRM should rally their support for Norbert Mao. Because the agreement we have is fundamental. We have been faithful to our part of the agreement as DP. We have served faithfully. The NRM has not kept all its commitments, and many times I'm being attacked from within my own party. They say, we were supposed to get another position. You are there alone. What are you doing there? What are you doing about this? I've written so many letters, I've raised these issues with the president. Even when the opportunity came and there was a reshuffle and other people who were out of cabinet were brought in, DP was still ignored. So the question is, if the unity of Uganda is the precondition for tackling the problems we face, then why should we undermine unity by saying that now you are NRM? That is the reason why the president invited me to Chankwanzi. Against the wishes of Mama Rolls Royce.
She's now in the garden.
I was being told to stay in the compound and not even approach the so-called bedroom.
Where there was stolen money.
So, I was invited to Chankwanze. That should give you a signal that the president is serious about the nucleus of the unity. You can have unity, you can have unity with other political parties. You can invite members of the opposition to meet with them, but everything must have a nucleus. And the DP-NRM cooperation is the nucleus of the broader unity of Ugandans as we make that leap forward. It is not about positions, it's about what we want to achieve. So let us raise now the 4 fundamental expectations our citizens have, which any government, no matter who is the leader, has to respond to. Number 1, unity of the country. This is what we call the national question. The national question, as I talked about the last time, is how to bring diverse peoples, different languages, tribes, even interests, together in one nation. Julius Nyerere did it in Tanzania. How can you resolve the national question when politicians are fighting? The second is to ensure peace, security, and tranquility. The third is to ensure economic advancement of the people. The fourth is to ensure democracy in all its dimensions. There is no likelihood that any political party would tell the electorate that it does not believe in unity, peace, development, and democracy. We can therefore assume that all leaders, irrespective of their political affiliation, would aim to work for these fundamentals. The movement system, you remember it? Which many of us opposed, perhaps prematurely, attempted to deal with a major contradiction or a distortion. Namely, that despite all the parties claiming to be promoting the same fundamentals, yet every 5 years the voters are required to select on the basis of some superficial differences a party to perform the tasks that in fact all the parties agree should be done. If all the parties in Uganda, DP, UPC, NRM, NUP, PFF, and so on, all agree that we need unity, peace, development, and democracy, then the question is, what are we thinking when we go into the elections and we say all these people agree on what needs to be done, but you choose one of them? So the movement system was based on putting aside the party labels in order to allow the electorate to choose the best individuals, so that those individuals can then meet in parliament to discuss the details of the agreed tasks and then cooperate in getting it done. That is the reason why in 2022 we agreed to cooperate. Now, on corruption, this is just a small battle won. I don't think we are yet even 20% in the war against corruption. This is a very, very small victory. So let us not jump around too much. But these are my thoughts. on corruption in parliament. I already told you that Mao is an answer to a different question, and that question is, who can best lead parliament in tackling the problems of Uganda, including fighting corruption? I agree that the greatest vulnerability of the parliament today is not only the appearance of corruption, but the reality of it. Therefore, if we are to consolidate, there are many reasons why corruption has to be fought. Since our biggest challenge is underdevelopment, we have to tackle impediments to development. Corruption is the biggest impediment to development. Corruption impedes economic development in a number of ways. When officials with political power demand bribes, resources go into private pockets instead of being channeled towards production. This becomes a great distortion of economic incentives. Corruption is also a kind of regressive tax upon the population. All countries have petty corruption. You know, the type which is carried out by poorly paid officials. But the largest amount of stolen money goes into the pockets of elites who use their power to divert resources meant for the general population. Public officials who seek payoffs in the form of bribes in order to do their work waste a lot of time and delay projects. Wealth creators spend valuable time chasing officials to make decisions instead of focusing on running their businesses. At the same time, officials spend most of their time in a kind of gamesmanship to seek private gain at public expense. This is what economists call rent seeking. We reject the belief that bribery fosters efficiency by acting as a lubricant to incentivize officials to act quickly in processes such as land transactions, registration of businesses, securing licenses, and getting appointments with high-level officials. We reject this school of thought and believe that procedure, because where there is a general perception that officials and politicians are corrupt, the legitimacy of the government declines in the eyes of the common people, and the sense of trust that is critical if the state is to run will collapse. To borrow the word of President Trump, I am here to drain the swamp. We must stop the hemorrhage of public resources. That is the key task of the next Speaker of Parliament. So, I propose a diagnostic endeavor to carry out a forensic audit of Parliament, the finances, assets, streamlining workforce issues such as recruitment, remuneration, promotion, capacity building. That is why today I celebrate our brave and public-spirited effort to stop individual power from overtaking institution power in Parliament. A candidacy is not simply a political challenge to the parliamentary status quo. It's a moral challenge. As the President said in Chankwanzi, the final verdict is with the members of the 12th Parliament. Anybody else can only recommend. We need humility. If the President of Uganda can say, we have made our recommendations, then what is the point of having an election? But more importantly, power must be driven by purpose. The office of Speaker is very powerful. It gives you an opportunity to do good things, but it can also give you an opportunity to do bad things, as we have seen. Power without purpose will lead to a disaster. And that purpose must be based on the interests of the people of Uganda. We want a speaker who will lead with purpose. We don't want a speaker who is a project. That is why we must insist that power must be our servant and not our master. And have consistently declared the purpose for which I seek the position. Yesterday, the chairman of the NRM Electoral Commission made a public statement where he said, as of now, the NRM does not have a candidate for speaker. He said it. The symbols we saw on ballot papers are well known. The chairman of the Electoral Commission made a statement and posted a video on X. And today, I saw the General Secretary of the PLU saying he agrees with that statement. I hope after this press conference, there will be less confusion. And I really ask the members of 12th Parliament, stop the confusion. You are all over the place, swinging in all sorts of directions. Even your followers now don't know what to do. The person who made the pronouncement in Mukono has said he now agrees with what the chairman of the NRM Electoral Commission has said. And this is a summary of what the chairman of the Electoral Commission said. So, to be the speaker, who has demonstrated that more than me in this period? And he said that the stepping down from being a candidate by the former speaker has, and I quote, set the ground for a new process. As a cooperating partner of the NRM, I have read and mastered the NRM Constitution. I've read their code of conduct, and I pay attention to what their leaders say. After all, if you are seated in a vehicle which someone else is driving, you have got to watch how they are driving. He said that the choice is now on the party to do the roadmap. He then said, the chairman will guide us on the roadmap. But he also mentioned the relationship between the NRM and the PLU. He called the PLU a pressure group. It's what we call scavenger politics. Our history has parallels of scavenger politics. And I'm going to use one which is not very flattering, but I promised you I'm going to speak the truth. And I also want to be on the right side of history. As a matter of fact, I'd rather be on the right side of history than to be the speaker. If I have a choice between, why should I be a speaker when I'm on the wrong side of history? I'd rather be on the wrong side of history and miss the position of speaker. So let me share with you the parallel in our history of scavenger politics. By 1985, the UPC government that had rigged the elections was severely weakened by the pressure, military pressure of the NRA. The NRA was there in the bush putting military pressure. And that gave an opportunity for the generals that were part of the Uganda National Liberation Army, the government army, to scavenge on the government. So they took over power. But the coup makers could not sustain the government. The pressure had been put by other people. These ones took advantage of the situation and entered into government. A government they could not sustain. Now this is what I call the politics of improvisation. That's the same thing I'm seeing. There's improvisation going on. In football, even substitutes must have been in the training camp. You don't just say, is there any footballer in the crowd? Come and wear this shirt. The people who sit on the substitutes bench must be people who are mentally prepared. As I said, the NRA had weakened UPC. The generals in the government army took advantage and overthrew the government. They could not sustain it. Eventually, the real torchbearers of the people's cause came to the fore to take charge of the change they had precipitated. That's why I'm telling Ugandan, it's a matter of time. Sometimes you can be anointed, but you don't even assume the position immediately. I think David was anointed, but for 17 years he was running for his life. Can you imagine? You are with the anointing, but you can't access the throne because of forces. Even Uganda has so many forces right now. But we must not fear them, because this country is going to change, whether anybody likes it or not. I see things differently, and I'm not complaining, because unlike others, me, I don't have any sense of entitlement. But I believe in destiny. So today, I want to say that no one has the final word. Even God, by the way, still has something to say about this speakership. And he's going to speak. And God can whisper into important ears the truth. And he's going to do it. God still has a statement to make about this. I told you this before, because you people were looking like those armies that faced Goliath. I even told you about David and Goliath that day here. But you are not listening, because you are terrified. You are looking with fear. And I defined for you what fear is. That fear means false evidence appearing real. F-E-A-R. Haven't you proved that it is now right? All the money was actually false evidence. All these material things were false evidence. All the endorsements were false evidence appearing real. But for you, you were thinking that that is the reality. But it was only appearing to be the reality. I have preached from this podium. Sometimes I feel like a pastor. But Ugandans don't listen. What is truly mine will come to me in due course. My destiny will unfold. Because destiny indicates a destination, and it is a matter of time. And what is truly mine will be that place which is the best for me. To our allies in the NRM, the speakership is not just a matter for the NRM, it's not just a matter for the members elected to the 12th Parliament, it's a matter for all citizens. Since the MPs represent the citizens, they cannot ignore the public sentiment. I'm calling upon all Ugandans from now onwards, call your member of parliament and tell them to vote for Mao. If not, wait for them in 2031 and remind them. What my candidature offers is a sharp contrast to the false dichotomy that members of opposing parties are disjoint sets. Instead, my candidature offers a choice for us to move forward together as partners to achieve the promise of a new Uganda, united, free, peaceful, and prosperous. To my friends in the NRM and to President Museveni, let us reclaim the spirit of 1986. Because at this point, we cannot afford to improvise. Why do I speak of the spirit of 1986? In 1986, the NRM and the DP were in a partnership. That partnership lasted for 10 years. That partnership was not accidental. After all, the party that had been cheated was DP. It was not UPM. The UPM did not have votes to steal. They even only got one member of parliament. Today we are being laughed at that we have 6 members of parliament. Please read your history also. The majority of those who died in the war that brought the NRM into power were DPs. Those skulls and bones in Luero are DPs. Sometimes I'm shocked by how recklessly the DP members talk, because they're only looking at Mere ya lero. I see them on TV. Mao yafuna nze safuna. Am I the one who gives the position? Mao yagabe before. If I were the one appointing ministers, you would blame me. But instead of thanking me for even keeping the door open, your only problem is okufuna mu. We have seen so many people who have kufuna mu. Even in a means time, there are people who went and they kufunad. You can even kufuna from a witch doctor. You can kufuna from it, but it is not about okufuna. Others are saying, all that Mao is doing is negotiating for a position. That is not my intention. I don't think I would take all the risk I've taken. Actually, the best way to negotiate for a position would have been to be one of the endorsers. And I would have been the chief endorser. And this story would have been different if I had become an endorser. Do you think I didn't have a choice to be an endorser? I had a choice to be a chief endorser. And probably I would now be negotiating the next deal. But I stuck my neck out. We cannot choose leaders through improvisation. Fortunately, these few weeks we have seen a lot. We have now realized that actually maturity does not come with age. I've seen old people acting like adolescents. Even kindergarten kids have shown more understanding of issues. But because of shamelessness, they are now trying to explain. If you have made a wrong decision, first of all, admit that you are wrong. quickly. And then preferably first keep quiet. I saw the endorsers, the way they flocked to Mukono the other day, hugging everyone that was there. And I'm sure they have now blocked the other number now.
Or even deleted.
I'm a politician, but even me, I'm shocked. That's why I said we have now realized that maturity does not come with age. When I was last here, I told you that we had already won the spiritual war. In other words, just as David faced